The waves are continuing to build in front of the fleet. Plenty of nosediving as our boats struggle to find a way round the walls of water. All our boats except one. This is when Team Malizia should have the edge as their bow flies high over the swell. Welcome to the Ocean Race Show, where leg 3 is far from over, but in the next few days our boats will be rounding Cape Horn, so at least the worst should be behind them. To get to the Cape, it's tricky. Waves, wind and a narrowing racetrack will force our sailors to manage the rough conditions without much of an escape route. Ice drifting up from the northwest, bringing the ice limit further and further north. Wind about to barrel in from the northwest, and South America blocking their path. Not to mention the boats are so close to each other that the pressure to keep the throttle at full is hard to resist, especially for Team Wholesome PRB, who are desperate to win back their lead.
It's almost like the race has restarted. Imagine like we were players on a game board and they've just picked us all up, shuffled us round and just thrown it down, and it's all started again, which we knew was going to happen because of the way the weather weather systems were rolling. It's good to have them back and good to have some rivalry and some action, and being able to see them though is pretty amazing. To be this close after 9,000 miles of racing.
Lots of miles done, now 3,000 miles left to run, and the fleet are packed tightly together while heading north from the ice limit to try and find kinder conditions for maximum speed. Team Wholesome PRB found themselves just in front, but knowing that any of the chasing boats could slip in if they dropped their focus, and concentration was needed as the waves were causing issues. Multiple nosedives across the fleet, with Biotherm suffering a breakage after a violent crash. Travelling at 25 knots and digging the nose under the water puts a lot of strain on the boat as everything above the water keeps going while the hull is brought to almost a complete halt. The crash ripped their fractional reaching code 0, a very important sail in this part of the world. The perfect downwind heavy air sail, or at least it was.
Yes, so after a bad nosedive, when the boat came out of the wave, the little Ginecker was broken in two parts. So we managed to roll it and to put it in the bag, but we can't use it into Itajaí. So it's hard because it's a useful sail in this condition, but actually we are using a little sail. But it's not too bad because the sea and the wind is it's quite strong. We have a big sea state and a big gust in the clouds.
If any of the other boats could see Biotherm, they might be wondering why Paul Mayer is not using the fractional reaching code 0. The fleet are so close together that they can visually inspect the different sail choices and compare setup. And being this close is a rare treat. It gives you an instant feedback as to how well you're doing.
Watching 11th hour, they were quite a bit lower than us, and now we kind of closed gauge, and now we're big time lower than them. So we're lower and faster at the moment.
Faster too.
Faster! That's good, the boat is doing very well at the moment.
They're looking after their broken sail. Two reefs in the main.
Yeah.
Whereas we've got full main.
Big
full
wave!
Broken sail?
Yeah, their mainsail. They ripped their mainsail in half.
Oh.
And they did an amazing repair. We saw some photos of the repair they did. It was a big job. And I think they're probably pretty excited to not go and destroy it as soon as the wind picks up, so that's why they've got two reefs now.
We have similar head sail. We both have frictional head sail, and we have no reefs, and they have two reefs.
battle between 11th Hour Racing Team and Team Malizia was just one moment out of many where the boats came together. There will be many more as the fleet continues to push east, not yet making the turn south where the conditions are set to worsen. Our boats don't always want maximum wind. There is a sweet spot in the conditions, as weather expert Christian Dumas explains.
For the IMOCA boats, the best wind and wave conditions are about 20-25 knots and waves up to 2 or 3 meters, because the boats can fly and so they can sail at speeds up to 30 knots, which is very fast for a monohull. When the waves get bigger, they have problems flying, and so they tend to fly less and less. The bigger the waves, the less they fly, and so they slow down when they have bigger waves. So the strong winds mean usually big waves, and so above 30 knots, the boats tend to slow down, which is not very logical, I admit.
But even when sailing more miles around the peak of the breeze to find those perfect conditions, still for the sailors who are on watch, it's an incredibly bumpy ride. And once you've got the sails set up and the boat dialed in and under control, it's just about finding somewhere in the cockpit that you can be somewhat comfortable. We normally see the two sailors on watch on either side of the cockpit, sitting wherever they can to be comfortable at that moment. For 11th Hour Racing Team, with a boat designed for multiple crew, the positions are perhaps a bit kinder. Whoever is holding the sheet and controlling the boat is sat to windward inside the bubble, and the reserve crew down to leeward, not asleep, but sometimes not really awake either. Team Holcim PRB have what looks to be the lowest canopy, with the best view of the sails looking straight up through the roof. Boat design, watch system design, and even just the height of each individual crew member showing up in the different ways that these crews are sailing the boats. One thing all the sailing styles have in common though is nose diving. Well, everyone except Team Malizia. Now with 2 reefs, but happy in the conditions. Without nose diving, they are pulling ahead. But it's much more than just speed. Every time you stick the bow into the wave in front, you hugely increase the load on the boat, and breakages can and often do follow. So this team has a reduced risk of damage. The sailors will be less stressed, perhaps even sleeping better, and have more energy to face anything that might be coming up in the future. Their speed is quicker, but if anything, they seem to be having the opposite problem to the other teams. The bow too high to accelerate to maximum speed, although I'm sure it's a problem that the rest of the boats wish they had. As the waves are building still and conditions playing more into Team Malizia's favour. But they need to make full use of this opportunity, because the boat design that's gaining them in the Southern Ocean is going to be a real penalty in the light winds of future miles in this race. This is their moment to stretch into the lead. This is their chance as the weather continues to worsen.
The wind is increasing right now for the boats, and on Saturday we should have the strongest winds with the front coming from the west. The wind could be up to 35-40 knots, with gusts up to 50 knots, maybe 55 knots. And the main concern for the boats will be the sea state, because there is a lot of fetch, so the wind is coming from the south pole, and it's going to make big waves, up to 6-7 meters probably, and they'll have to slow down. How much we don't know yet, but the boats will have to slow down to deal with this.
Funneled in between the land of South America and the ice limit. And this ice limit is constantly updated by race control. It's changed 7 times since this leg began, and it's all to do with tracking the icebergs and that information beamed to us here via satellite. Right now, there are icebergs much further north than the last edition of the race, so the ice limit is 300, 400 miles further north than in 2017-18. But as the race gets nearer to South America, the pain of having that ice limit rising gets more acute as the boats are funneled against the land with a very narrow runway between the ice and the land to race through. It's all going to mean our teams will be sailing in tough conditions, on uncomfortable angles to the wind in order to get round the course, which probably means going slower than they would otherwise like. For some of the boats, it's a sensible, clear decision.
We got some handicaps here. We're trying to figure out how best to navigate this last stretch, given the condition of our yacht. So that we're in a position at Cape Horn where the race will inevitably change. To kind of capitalize on some opportunities that lie ahead. So we're bleeding a little bit right now, so we got to figure out how to minimize that and see if we can actually come back to the group.
Charlie Enright from 11th Hour Racing Team explaining the need to be sensible at this part of the race. And they are slowing down, and that's having an effect on the fleet as well. Kevin Escoffier from Team Wholesome PRB also slowing down, perhaps a little bit more concerned about the American boat on the overall scoreboard than Boris Herrmann and Team Malizia, who are forging ahead in these ideal conditions for their boats. The next few days are going to be crucial. Just how rough are the conditions going to be before the fleet round Cape Horn and push up to the finish? The best way for you to stay informed is to subscribe to all our social media channels, because as soon as we get news of anything happening out in the fleet, we'll push it out to you. In the meanwhile, we'll keep our eyes glued to the tracker as our boats push on in the final stages of Leg 3.
Okay, so today Flag Captain is playing. We have 4 cameras and we're going to try to do a real movie. Okay, let's go.
We're flying.
There is a rainbow just under it. It's beautiful. Rosie is the pilot, the best pilot ever.
It's sick.
It's I am full speed. I cannot go faster.
Yeah, me neither.
I am going 50 km per hour. So.
Will is getting hosed. We're sailing 30 knots. He is getting hosed outside. Big one.
Okay, now you just go down a bit.